Oh my goodness, JC, without further ado, I need to introduce the man, the myth, and the legend. As of Monday, JC Bonilla has rejoined Element 451 as COO and head of AI. He is also co-host with Artist Kadu on Generation AI on Enrollify. And with over 2 decades of experience, JC specializes in next-gen data products, AI innovation, and global analytics solutions. At Element 451, he'll be driving organizational scaling and leading the company's AI practice, pioneering advances in AI driven student engagement solutions. Previously, he was the global chief analytics officer at VaynerX, and he led measurement and advanced analytics practices there worldwide. JC is here today to talk about leveraging AI to transform student service delivery. And we can't let another moment go to waste. JC, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mallory. I'm glad this is recorded. I will be playing that intro a lot of times. It sounds really nice, and I appreciate you doing the justice there. Hi, everybody. It's great to be back. I feel that many of you get to hear me sometimes through the podcast, some of the thought leadership of the conferences that I attend, or how I support Element behind the scenes through engage in multiple things. But today you hear me as a full-time employee, and I'm so excited to be doing that. And one of the things I wanted to do in this conference, in this AI session, is to bring a point of view that mixes, obviously, AI, student engagement, and a bit of what we've learned in the past 3 years as it relates to experience, consumer experience, generalize, whether you are a Fortune 500 company selling cookies, Oreo, Pepsi, Visa, Coach, or an academic institution like the wonderful ones that we have here. I need to set the stage with the notion of a digital native, the mindset specifically. And look, yes, we're talking about individuals. Probably were born 2000, 2012. They may have the label Gen Z, and they do not know a world without smartphones. Social media is a primary or the primary communication channel, and the expectation of information sources, it's really up here. But one of the important key points I want you to understand is that a digital native mindset is the one where digital first, it's an approach for problem solving, which means that you, me, and many others like us are bleeding into the Gen Z label of digital native. What does that mean? Think about how you start the day and how you end the day. If you're like me, there's a phone and there's a phone. Think about the expectations of how you order food, a taxi, or how you actually book your travel. Digital, and so on and so forth. So we can see that it's very clear that this digitally experience, as we know it, it's bleeding out of a Gen Z kind of decade to a multi-generational aspects. And it's really, really important for you to keep in mind these stats. Think about if you're a digital native, which I'm not saying it's not only Gen Zs, 98% of us have a smart device, phone, tablet, you name it. The average response times, it's actually less than 5 minutes. The stats from 2023 and 2024 are really, really interesting. 85% of a digital native prefers a digital self-service experience rather than a human interactive experience. We've been talking about the human in the loop, but that could happen behind the scenes. Think about what it means that the digitally native experience expects 85% of the instances to be mediated by technology. And only when I need, I have that human intervention showing up. 92% expect the personalized experience to really tailor me at the moment in time in the context that I represent right now or where I'm at. And look at this one, 75% of the interactions are multi-devices simultaneously. That means, and think about when you have done this, I go from tablet to phone to maybe a laptop. And what I did is I checked the prices, I booked, and I looked at the ticket. And all that happened simultaneously across multiple devices. So with that stage, I want you to start thinking about how AI will come and help. The expectations that I'm setting out have 5 dimensions, and we're going to be using this to basically bring it to higher education. So if a digital native exists and those expectations are starting to emerge. What does it mean as we devise and design and create consumer and student experiences? Number one, there's a sense of immediacy. It has to happen real time. There's zero tolerance for delays. It's an app speed type of service delivery. It feels like it's in a phone in an app, and it solves the problem in an immediate type of fashion. Number two, it expects a seamless integration with all the systems that you manage. Single sign-ons, unified digital experience, no longer your campaign from the landing page to your financial aid assets and experience could look disjointed. It has to be cross-platform compatible. It's fluid between services. Oh my gosh, the hot potato of you being passed down to an office and the other one needs to start the conversation again. And look at this one. No repetitive data entry. How often this is happening that as you carry from the new instance, you need to come and start the process again in authentication of who you are. Number three, you'll be hearing this throughout all the different speakers. It must be 24/7, always on, always active. That means around the clock, multi-channel with self-service options on demand, and also support asynchronous communication options. Personalize, and we've been talking about different ways of personalization that are AI mediated. I'll have a really specific example today. That means that not only the recommendations I tailor, but it's contextual to the time and the place I'm in at the moment. It remembers my preference and history, it's predictive, and it knows my communication style and is basically built that way. And last but not least, as I mentioned, is digital first, human optional. Self-service as a default, digital solutions as the routine aspect, mode operandi, if you will. Yeah, I need to escalate to a human easily. Video and chat options before and in person, and a smart routing in the case that I need to come and involve those. So all these are basically the moving forces that shape the competitive landscape today that is being dictated by technology and facilitated by AI. And obviously, how do I translate this based on this insight and all the wonderful conversations we've been having over the past day and a half? It's that the traditional office hours are obsolete. Email is slow. The need for mobile first, smart systems, and a design of a proactive service experience, all these should be now expected built within higher education ecosystems. And as you know, this is hard. We've been talking about how there's a delta between professional services, skill level for us to deploy those things. But the reality is that consumers and students are expecting that today in our different campuses. Yeah, the premise is AI can help. What does that mean? I'd like to grab one slide from Artis's keynote this morning, which was wonderful, in that AI has three pillars and manifestations of help. Number one, experience. Number two, productivity. And three, teaching and learning. But I have a somewhat controversial viewpoint here. Also carries a bit of the artist could do energy. That on the right-hand side, teaching and learning, sure, AI is going to come and help. Sure, there's a gigantic promise for us to deploy a new experience that touches curriculum and teaching as we know it. But in my point of view, that is aspirational. AI is writing the book of how LMSs and systems will include pedagogy, teaching, curriculum, knowledge, professor, and all those kind of things are embedded, and the student benefits from it. I know that will happen, and that will happen very, very soon. But it's aspirational, as I mentioned. Whereas on the left-hand side, I truly believe that service and productivity, AI, specifically as it relates to them, it's here to serve them. Moreover, it's already serving the experience and the productivity. And what I'd like to do today, it's give you one specific example on experience and productivity that define this service engine that I know is needed for us to go to the next levels. And remember, my whole point is that we're not talking about aspirational AI, but moreover, what AI is doing today and how you leverage it. And when it comes to experience, my conversation is going to be about how AI is defining algorithmic recommendations through social media and productivity, how the traits of a leader and an emergent AI leader is here to stay, and what does that look like? All right. In this conversation, I have one of the most beautiful, one of the most busy. There's a ton of things to show in this graph. I could probably stay here half hour. We're going to do it in 2 or 3 minutes. This graph represents the commoditization of attention. Economy today trades attention. Your attention, my attention. You're trying to grab that 18-year-old attention to come and apply. You're trying to grab that 21-year-old attention to come and complete the graduation requirements. You're trying to grab the attention of the employee who works for you so that she can give you the reports that you want so you can come and bring it to the president's office at the cabinet meeting tomorrow. Attention is where it's at. But as it relates to personalization of content, the emergence of social media platforms, Facebook, TikToks, Instagrams, and so on, has created a really interesting economy for attention. On the dotted line, you see relevance and kind of how it shapes. On this kind of straight grain line, it's cost and how it's tilted to the right. And then you start seeing these colors of the circles as yellow, culture, and platform specific. So let's start with platform. That means how the messaging, it's packaged. The creative, it's basically encapsulated in a platform called Instagram and the things I'm able to do there. But good creative is capturing a moment in time that most likely it expands and goes viral because culture is right at the moment. So the message and culture kind of come and join. That's basically what you see on yellow. Now, what I'd like to come and give you as the last viewpoint here is that there's places where attention is emergent, it's exciting to be there, and there's places on the right-hand side where attention is very, very expensive. In other words, you can come and spend $1 million today for an ad that gives you zero lift and zero experience. But you can come and spend 30 cents, yes, 30 cents on an ad that has a tremendous lift on the objectives that you want to achieve and has high student experience. So let's come and unpack that. What does it mean to start basically looking into the cutting edge of AI recommendation engines for experience under the lens of social media? Look at these stats. Did you know that 40% of the search today, it's moving away from Google and entering YouTube and Instagram? I was just in Costa Rica visiting my family 2 weeks ago. My niece, who is our basically default tour guide, every restaurant and place that we went was a recommendation from TikTok or Instagram, no longer Yahoo Maps or Google Maps fulfilling those requirements. Did you know that the search on social media, 60% of it is all about brand, top of funnel, discovery of who you are, the academic messaging that lands should be happening in social media. Did you know that the cross relation of who it's a peer, and doesn't mean that it's a follower, and we're going to come and expand that. 85% of those are basically based on the perception that others telling me the message that I want to believe or disproving the message that I don't care for. Did you know that 70% of the decisions in social media basically are taking place in that lower funnel? In other words, when you're looking at social media proof, lower funnel activations are really taking place there. And last but not least, 55% of the visuals are proof before buying. That means that the content has this shape and form that it's modern, but contextual to the platform. Okay? Now, second point that I want to give to you in the premise of how do social media and AI come together and how it's the experience unlock. Think about one of the biggest challenges that you may have today as your KPI in your social media networks. And all of you who are managing social media networks, I hope this is a nuance. Followers do not matter. Let me repeat that. Followers do not matter. If you have KPIs called number of followers, it doesn't impact the way an algorithm is thinking today about good content, bad content, and the propensity to go viral. What matters is what is called the interest graph. This was introduced early on by TikTok, and it allows us basically to think about how AI could be doing recommendations of content and create these connections that are interest-based, topic-based, as opposed to who do I know. Let me give you a perfect example of what this looks like. Mallory and I were talking about it earlier on through the lens of candy. But I have a girl. She's 6. Tomorrow she's going to be going on Switch. which makes me a dad who's very, very, very interested on girly type of, daddy relationships. My social media is constantly bombarded with things that I can be doing with my girl. Think about an ad that I get served as a dad, and it makes a ton of impact in me, a data person, an executive who is really, really involved in higher in ed tech. That, my friends, is attention grab. Why? Because it represents my life. Whether it's this type of shampoos or cars and dolls that show up in the bathroom, it tells me, JC Bonilla, the dad who I am, basically how my life is being shaped on a day in, day out. Today, that's literally an attention grab. The second point I'm sorry, the third point I want to bring here is this idea of how organic ranking and how you should think about virality and what the algo using AI is going to start moderating. So on the left hand side, think about a TikTok ad. This is true for Facebook, all the Meta family, and all the emerging platforms. The first thing that it does, it makes an estimation of how many impressions you deserve. That means I think you deserve 100 impressions. And this is basically a combination of analysis of your social media ad using the features that they provide. And it says, I think you deserve 100 impressions divided in these three topic areas. I'm going to show it to practitioners in the healthcare domain. I'm going to show it to dad girls. And I'm also going to show it to health professionals. Three topic interests, 100 impressions. What happens here, and one of the biggest mistakes that I see, is that many of us are trying to pursue impressions, not knowing that the break for virality comes from the relationship of meaningful engagements. So the algorithm in AI is trained to understand if I give you 100 impressions, I'm expecting 10 likes, 2 comments, no shares, no saves. And all of a sudden, a piece of content that deserved 100 impressions gets a break. And the ratio of saves to impressions changes. Also, you get one save, two saves, three saves. And what happens here is that this feedback loop says, let me give you more impressions and expand your topic network. I'm going to show it now to two other topic of interest. Urban parents, and specifically Brooklyn, New York natives into, I don't know, Halloween modality. And all of a sudden, this is how virality takes place and how AI and basically machine learning algorithms will come and deploy this idea that your content gets an estimation and how the breakthrough takes place. Because all of these slides will be able for you to take home and read. I want to give you just basically a lot of content that you can share with your different teams of what is happening today on the top line for YouTube, where I believe it's a great place for algorithmic attention to be grabbed. It's all about how the algo thinks of your content to generate longer viewing times. Instagram actually uses really interesting computer vision to pre-analyze your content and make an estimation of the meaningful engagements that you're going to come and produce. Very recently, I think about 2 or 3 months ago, you could see the CEO of Instagram making a pitch for saves and shares. This is how you get organic reach and whatnot. So starting thinking about how the deployment of success in Instagram was about content that would generate these type of meaningful engagements that are difficult to obtain, not a like, not a view per se. And TikTok kind of puts it all together, blending the infinite loop of scroll down, right? With the comments, the shares, the type of things that your action in the what I call the digital breadcrumbs of engagements. So think about how these three algorithms today give you that experience. The last eight on this section that I want to leave with you, and I'm not going to read all of them. This is again for your different teams to read and try to think about, oh, how do I apply these search patterns and experience designs for your students? Yes, my claim is that social media is how they communicate and how you can do it. Think about the search is going to be probably a point of view in YouTube. Think about search, how it's going to be geographically focused in Instagram. And think about how search is about hacks and what to do in TikTok. On the right hand side, you start actually seeing how that gets produced. And this should inform the creative. This should inform a lot of your uh, hygiene in how hashtags and all things are being produced. So let me just grab Instagram and give you a specific example. Location-based search, there are visual queries, the hashtag are being mined and indexed, and it looks for brand authenticity checks, right? In this case, we're not talking about the logo. It's something that was really created. Was your student really an ambassador going through the cafeteria, or was that basically mocked in their dorm rooms? Now, so on the right-hand side, on the popular search, replace the brackets for city, product, and experience or brand with brand for your college name, experience what you're trying to do in student services or the co-curricular experience, the product, the major that you want to do, and of course your location as city. This is how you basically start getting attention from the algo and how AI starts to think about promoting attention grabs. Let me leave you with two very concrete examples of how this is all put together. On the left-hand side, you'll start seeing an undergraduate video that it's done super, super well, and it went viral. On the right-hand side, you start seeing how we can start basically penetrating the adult market if you're trying to recruit for graduate professional programs that appeal to a slightly more mature audience. Let's observe. Let me just narrate what you saw. As this is playing, this is a student recommended engineering degrees, and you saw a presence of a really uncurated backdrop, a kitchen, and the branding elements are missing. But this could be linked to your highest academic institution, and it will do fantastic. On the right-hand side, you're starting to see a person interviewing a medical doctor. Where did you go to school? Hey, where do you go to school, Dr. James? And so on and so forth. All of them responding with basically their academic institutions. Incredible upper funnel attention and incredible success as it relates to the different performance. Which brings me to my last point. Algorithmically speaking, you're going to get this data. And if you understand how the algo works, you're going to get some type of better virality. But virality is not a function of a billion views or a million views. That's all undeniable. That's viral. But what I want you to understand is that there's an aspect of looking at organic content algorithmically that is different. On the left-hand side, you see content that has an engagement rate of 9.7. On the that's left-hand side. On the right-hand side, 9.5. Which content is better? They both have the same engagement rate. Your mind probably is going to, oh, left-hand side. You see the views? It's 2,698. What I can tell you is, from an AI algorithmic point of view, the right-hand side is much better content, although it only has 367 impressions or views. Why? Very simple. The propensity for this content to go viral, go to the next stage, it's a ratio of how many shares and comments and like it has gotten to the ratio of impressions or views that you basically were served originally. So in other words, there's this idea of virality that is undeniable. You got 1 million views, congratulations, celebrated. But when you start getting 3,000, 5,000, 100, even 100,000 views, maybe you're reaching a sense of virality that you do not know that exists. So the last thing that I want to do here is how algorithmically your virality is probably being computed. I'm not saying this is how TikTok does it, but 99% sure that it's something very, very similar to this. I wouldn't be doing this presentation if I didn't give you any math behind the scenes. So here you go. Take this to your different performance teams and make sure that you're computing your rate of virality. Calculate the average number of impressions for the last 30 days. In this example is 1,200 impressions. And calculate the standard deviation of the same data. In this example is 300. What is virality? It's average 1,200 plus 3 times the standard deviation. That means 900, a total of 2,100 impressions. What does that mean? Every time you have a piece of content, when Instagram and LinkedIn or whatnot that beats this metric that you've calculated and it gets moving basically every 30 days becomes different, you know that you've gone viral. And what is happening is that that internal loop of organic ranking is becoming better. And what the algo wants is to always try to be better and in a way give you more impressions and more topics of interest. And this is basically a way for you to test that. How many times are we breaking through and we're being viral relative to our brand and our impressions takeaways? Part two of this presentation. I want to do something slightly different today, and I want to take an angle of productivity that, in a way, it's inspired by sessions yesterday to talk about change management. It's been an evolving conversation that I've been having with my co-host, Artist Kadui, in our podcast. But this idea that productivity, of course, is technology mediated, but it requires a change in who we are as leaders. And the story I want to tell you before we do something slightly different and fun here is that it really reminds me of me, the administrator, about 20 years ago when digital transformation was needed in the campus. And I needed to move from a paper-based application to an online application powered by Apply Yourself. When document imaging was not even a thing, but I needed to get a way to basically digitize transcripts that came to me from all over the world, and we didn't have a solution. And what I realized is that IT were busy or unavailable to come and help us. And us, the graduate center, managing a portfolio of about 1,000 students that we then like ballooned to like almost 5,000, needed to make the decisions of how we transformed the campus and how we brought that digital experience on the ground. So with that, I like to do something different. I like to invite the amazing Artist Kadu, my co-host, to join me in something that we've been teasing around, exploring around on our podcast that I want to coin today as a term. Artist Kadui, welcome, my friend. How are you?
Hey, JC, how's it going?
Okay.
Nice, nice presentation so far.
I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Um, Artist Kadu, everybody. He just keynote, so in case you missed it, crushed it. CEO of Element, my boss, a friend, and my co-host on the Amazing Generation AI podcast. Artist and I have been talking about a concept that I promised I was going to prototype, and I want to basically introduce a term. Artist, I really hope it sticks. So, inspired by one of your words that it's part of the technology stack of orchestration, I really wanted to understand how a AI technocrat emerges. There's a positive connotation of technocrats. There's also negative, right? What that means is a person who manages technology and has a technical depth to move the agenda of technology across enterprises. In this case, we're talking about AI. And I wanted to give you this in your honor orchestration and actually produce a term. So everybody, are you ready for the unveiling?
Let's do it. I'm so
You,
anxious right now.
you,
Let's do
you
it.
want to read this, artist? I give you the honor of pronouncing the first word.
Did you misspell that?
I did not misspell that.
There's no L in it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's AI Agility Orchestrator. There we go.
The definition is an AI agility orchestrator is a strategic and adaptive leader in higher education who focuses on harmonizing AI initiatives across departments. They excel in coordinating AI projects to meet institutional goals, emphasize practical real-world applications that enhance the student and faculty experience without being deep and technical experts. That's a really, really important aspect that they meet the institutional goals, emphasize practical real-world applications to enhance student and faculty experience without needing deep technical expertise.
Yeah, I like that. I like the last part, the technical expertise. I think that's a huge unlock there. People don't realize that this is possible and you don't need the technical expertise.
So, artists, true to our podcast style, what do you think about just what I just presented? Where does your brain go with this?
We can work on the naming just a little bit more, but I think
Bummer.
the general. So the AI agility orchestrator, I think this is really important because one of the things that I like we talked about. What comes to mind is this talk that I saw from the CEO of Accenture. Accenture is the largest professional services company in the world. They're investing $3 billion in AI upskilling to their team internally, but also Gen AI consulting is their largest growing portfolio that didn't exist 2 years ago, right? And the CEO, she was sitting at the economic forum, the Davos Economic Forum, and one of the things that she said is she used a story from back when she was a lawyer, and this was in the days that everything got faxed, all of the materials got faxed, but email was just around the corner, and the senior partners did not trust email, so they said you can't use email, it's insecure. It has all these downsides. You can't use it. You got to keep doing the way things are doing. And she fast forwards to today and starts thinking, it's like, well, look where we are today. Everything is done via email, and look at how fast that's gone. The security and all those things, like we moved away. We're kind of in the same mindset with AI, where as leaders, we look at technology and look at all the downsides, right? And it's not up, like, we should be able to tell our teams and empower those people who are actually doing the work to do it better, faster, and find a way to, and not just put barriers and put policies in place, but actually, make sure that we have an environment for that. So that comes to mind to me, right? And it's like it's really interesting because as a leader, it becomes really, really important to not just look at the risk part of new technology.
And one of the important things that you and I went through, because we're both engineers, we both had, we actually, when I met artists, we were sharing offices. This is 2007. So we kind of share a wall and we were solving different problems, but still governed by the same governance viewpoint, the same type of risks, tolerance, and the same type of ability to take on new projects and whatnot. So one of the things that catches my eye here, right, is that we needed to defend to technical people certain pursuits, right? I remember when you launch all these multimedia kind of integrated TVs, and half of the faculty who had an expertise in multimedia ask you why you're doing it that way, right? So,
Right.
or when I remember talking about, document imaging, and the registrar's office asked me about security and FERPA rights and things of that sort. So there's this maverick, there's this sometimes going rogue mindset and personality that emerges, and it's a sweet balance, artist. And if you are in this conference and you're listening to us right now, you're one of us, in the sense that you're trying to use these technologies that are opening up doors, and some of these doors are being closed on your face. So, artists, with that context, you've probably just met, I don't know, 1,000 CTOs and 500 deans and 55,000 director of admissions. What's your word of advice to, I just got Element or any other technology and I just want to push those doors and they're closing on my face?
Look, I mean, there's certainly a lot of risk in risk in the sense that this thing is going to fail, and that's why we see technology like sometimes people don't excuse me, they don't change the technology, but the excuse me.
No worries. As well, I just what Artist Hydrates, Mallory just linked us to the AI Learning Center that has some of these guides that actually give you viewpoints on how to unpack AI agendas, roadmaps, and things of that sort. So, great link. Thank you, Mallory, for thinking of this. Are you good, buddy?
Yeah, I almost choked there for a second.
You got
So
let's be real. You got emotional because
I got very emotional. You joining
you
the
were
team is
thinking
not
about
like,
how some professors basically challenge your digital media skills.
I always had a chip on my shoulder, and it's like when somebody tells me, "Hey, you can't do something," it just
I
becomes
know.
a motivator. So maybe we can go there, right? Maybe that could be a motivator. It's like you gotta. Um, so kind of going back to your question is like, well, how do you prove that something is working? I think Seth said something really interesting yesterday where he said, "Hey, just do it. Don't ask for permission unless you have to," with
Yep.
like little tiny parentheses. But you just do it. This is here today. It's not going to get any. So if you have to get the approvals and if you have to go through all the red tape, things are just going to get done, right? And then somebody else is going to do it, and you're going to get a lot faster, a lot. There's no rules right now. The rules haven't been established yet, and everybody's trying to figure it out. So if you have an opportunity to experiment, to learn, to move things forward, just go ahead and do it. And don't worry about the repercussions because the repercussions are, there's not going to be many in the sense that you think it is, right? So you're not going to be in the New York Times or any of that stuff. Like the idea here is moving against the grain, against institutional kind of change. That's really hard, but it's not, you're not risking like all the fears that are out there around copyright and security and all these different things. They're really not real at the level that we're operating today for the tools that we're using. We're talking about those risks at a much different level at the large companies where they're ingesting, New York Times data. Like the things that we're doing don't really matter, and we're tiny that we're not gonna none of that stuff makes a difference. So maybe that's a little bit of a comfort that the risk is pretty minimal, I would say. Some folks can come back and they're going to talk about, well, how about the student data and so on and so forth. I mean, of course, what we're talking about is adoption of the tools and adoption of transforming these processes in using AI to help transform those processes. We're not talking be careful, be careless in terms of how you expose data and so on and so forth.
Obviously, this name and this body work, it's highly mediated by ChatGPT and Claude. If anything, the name was a whole brainstorming session that we did online. So, Brian, I think you recommended. I took it there, and this is actually some of the outputs that generative AI gives you as I've been trying to play around with. How do we create these words? The next phase that we did in creating this artifact called an AI agility orchestrator, it's look at all the body of literature around change management and leadership and tell us what are the skills needed for a higher education professional to dabble between technology, adoption, change management, leadership, and student services. And these 10 were produced by, I don't know at this point if I'm in ChatGPT and Claude. We are giving, because these slides will be shared again I always like to give handouts and things of that sort. We're giving you a full description of what they are with a link to the podcast. We'll probably have more other sessions, but you start seeing what all of these are. But I'd like to say in this graphic artist, there's 10 here: being a strategic, adaptable, visionary thinking, collaboration and coordination, practical focus, ethical and use case approach, effective in communication, operational efficiency, empathy and user-centered approach, data-informed decision making, and last but not least, continuous learning and improvement. These are the skills and the attributes, behaviors, if you will, of a leader who will be successful at mediating the waters of AI, strategically speaking, user specific, and as the definition mentioned, having the institutional goals in mind without having the need of being an expert in deploying technical AI. So, artists, can you just grab two Actually, if you can grab one and just unpack it, I would love for you to do for sure empathy and user-centered focus. For the past 10 years, you've been writing use cases for higher education. And what I find you doing is sometimes you say, no, that's not how you want to do event management. This is a new way. So the empathy required for sometimes saying, what I'm hearing from you and admissions people is that you want me to replicate 1960s. I think there's a new way, right? So when the use case pushes a nuance, what has been your winning formula? And anyone else that you like to talk about?
So, I mean, this is really important, the empathy and user focus, because we look at the world through our own eyes, and sometimes we just need to swap, points of view. And when you're building products, that becomes really difficult because you're building things from your own perspective, and sometimes the people who are really successful are because they've experienced the problem before and they're coming up with a solution because they have an insight on how that problem can be solved, or looking at that problem that way. You can't just sit around and say, oh, I'm going to solve this problem. Meanwhile, you need to go do a lot of user research. So the empathy part comes in, and it's really, really important because it really can be a place where you're solving. Technically, the best place to start is to solve your own problems, right? And focusing on the things that you have as a pain point right now. So that's a really, really interesting area. And then go tangentially to the areas where you have a great insight, or you have somebody who can connect you with the pain that's happening, or with the perspective that is that user you were solving the use case for. Of course, we can take, for example, the application reading, right? So if you were to tell me today that I haven't read an application before, to be honest. Like I haven't done that before. I haven't graded it. You've done probably millions, right?
A
So
few, a
so when I
few.
look at that problem, like, I have no empathy in terms of what goes into the reading of an application, the passing it around. But we had to do a lot of user research. We had to talk to a lot of people in order, and customers and things like that, in order to understand what the problem is, what the opportunity is, how it's
Right.
seen from the user's perspective. But if it was me, like, I would say it's not a problem. It's like, like, we just put up a bunch of digital tools and so on and so forth. But that's allowed us to look at it, and employ AI in a way that can be very meaningful to the user on the other side.
100%. The definition that we obtain for empathy and user center focus, right? It's that it understands the diverse needs of students, faculty, and students, ensuring AI initiatives enhance their experiences meaningfully, knowing they will
Yeah,
not be
exactly.
perfect, but also it's a combination of trying to be right, seeing the future, foreseeing the future. I'd like to take number 4, practical focus. Prioritizes use cases that provide immediate benefit impact over technical sophistication, ensuring AI solutions are relevant and beneficial. One of the things that I know as a manager and I use in my ingredients for success, right? When I've had success, artists, is that it's really hard to deploy at 100%. And you and I know this so well, and as product people and technologies, that last 10% or the last 20% is harder than the first 90 or 80%. In other words, you're better off deploying at 80, 90% because the last tail is harder and you will never launch. Practicality in that sense, it's an assumption that you will never reach perfect stage, but in the iteration, in the aspect that it's better to learn than not do, is better to launch than basically never launch, in knowing that imperfect is being perfectly imperfect, if you will. It's a
Yeah.
mode operandi, and I think that AI and technology has a beautiful application there, right? And I don't know who said that. I saw it quickly on the chat, but someone said the moment you make these changes and you decide to, open the door, AI has taken 500 steps forward, right? So these things are so evolving that the moment you think you have it right, that technology has evolved that much that you don't. So practical and agility and this idea of deploying where impact is also a function of speed, and knowing that, perfect could be the enemy of the good sometimes. Anything for you to add there?
No, I think that's like we have a saying here is that progress before perfection.
Oh, yeah. Rooted against element values right there. I think we are close at time, artists. Really appreciate you jumping in, my friend, and doing a mini podcast with me on this term that I've been toying around with. I appreciate everyone who submitted names, from innovation leader to variations of AI in the words. But by the way, you do not want me to start with the one I proposed, which was a combination of AI, agile, and strategist. I cannot even pronounce that. But anyway, we started from that journey.
Valid soup. Strategery. Yeah, isn't that one of them? The AI strategist.
With my accent, I cannot pronounce it. And I will need you, like in our podcast, artists, always correct me. So you cannot be hanging with me in every other meeting. Mallory, are there any questions that came in that you want us to take before we sign off?
No, I think that you have been addressing the conversation in the chat room so well throughout the last 50 minutes. I do want to say hi to Nirka, who just dropped a nice little plug for your podcast in the chat. She says you make that Tampa traffic bearable, which, I mean, can you get better than that? And I agree. I don't have a lot of commutes these days, but when I drive to the grocery store, you're in my earbuds, and I always appreciate that. So,
Just
folks,
because of that, New York, I'm gonna sing next time so I
uh-oh.
can make your commute unbearable.
Oh no, no. Everyone, if you have not listened to Generation AI, you are really missing out because Artisan JC bring it every single week. It's such a great podcast. It's in fact our fastest growing at Enrollify. So y'all, it was so wonderful to listen to this session. And I know those videos didn't work with the sound, but we'll get that on the website very soon. And so you'll be able to listen to them. JC, appreciate you so much jumping in here on day 3 at Element and doing such a terrific presentation. JC, any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
No parting thoughts. Look at this. Reach out to us. And literally, as we just mentioned at the end, this emerging practice of AI is real. Go at it. You're here. That means that you have all the interest. Just bring all that spirit of Maverick and Rogue, and then it will come. But we're here to help. Thank you, everybody. And again, thank you, artists. And thank you, everybody, for the love on the podcast. We'll see you around.
9,000 calories. Only 9,000 calories. That's it.
That's the minimum for tomorrow.
That's the way to end. 9,000 calories. Love that.
All right, bye, everybody.
All right, everyone. See you in the next session.